Well, hey friends, Shanna Kramer here with Creatively Uncorked, and today we're going to paint Spring Tea. This is a new painting I've been working on. We're going to be building this one up in layers, as nature intended. So, first thing we're going to do to get started, I have my reference photo here. You have your reference photo up in the corner. And I have my basic colors that I'm using for this painting today. My colors are going to be red, white, yellow, teal, green, turquoise. I will call this color all of those things. And blue. That's all we need today. All right, so we are working with acrylic paint. Acrylic paint dries very quickly, dries permanently. Good for your canvas, bad for your brushes, bad for your clothing. You don't want to let the paint dry on your brushes because it will destroy them. So when you're done painting, if you have paint on your brush, just drop that brush in your water cup and let it sit there until you're done with your painting session, then go clean them with soap and water. If you get any paint on your clothing, well, you're going to have to rinse that while it's still wet. Otherwise, you just have something to remember this by. Now, this is for the Art Kits to Go and for the members, our Creatively Uncorked members, which if you're not a member, you can find that at members.creativelyuncorked.com. And you can either get a membership and get access to all of the paintings, or you can just pick and choose and sign up for the ones you want. Point is, if you're a member, you'll have this traceable, and you can trace your canvas to start. I, however, am going to start with a blank canvas because that's what's in front of me. Grab a pencil. Okay, no pencil. I will grab a paintbrush. Easy peasy. All right, so I'll just keep my cheat sheet here right next to me. And I'll start out with, let's start out with a little bit of turquoise. This is my tracing color, so I'm just mixing up a thin little amount of turquoise, adding some water to it with my small brush, okay? So that's gonna go right about there. So top of my cup. Let's see, bottom of my cup, bottom of the saucer. And let's try left and right of the cups. So let's see. About there, and they're going to connect down here. Okay, so here's my arch. Arches are tough. This is one where you might want to just trace it if you're not comfortable making arches, but the way I'm doing it is just, so if I move my brush like this, it has to be an arch. That's all it can do. Okay, because I'm just moving my fingers, not the rest of my hand or the wrist. Same down here. Oop, a little bit more water in my paint. Got to keep that paint flowing smoothly. There we are. And another curve. All right. Curves are tough. It might not be exactly right the first time. That's okay, because we're going to spend the rest of the painting correcting it. I know that if you're a new painter, that might sound like a ridiculous thing. You should just be painting it exactly right the first time. Well, I got news for you. That pretty much never happens. So, and if you just train yourself to not think of it that way. Just think of it, don't think of it as, oops, I did that wrong. Just know that you're going to do that wrong, and that's part of the intention. We're starting out with something that isn't exactly right, and then we're just going to keep working on it until it's fixed. And that's just the way it is. When you're happy with it, you're done. Okay, so I've got my little bottom on the cup there, and then let's see, the outsides of the saucers are way out here. Okay, more water in my paint. Got a little blue in it that time. Okay, so I have some thin watery paint here, and let's try the bottom of that saucer. So that's gonna go like so on both sides. And I wish I could explain better how to make an arch, but it's an oval that's flattened, and it takes some practice. So if you don't get these right away, it's okay. Practice. There are students that spend years in art school trying to learn how to make these. So if yours aren't right away, don't worry. There. Okay. And this will have a little bit of a bottom on it. All right. So overall, I'm not unhappy with it. It's fine. It's definitely something we can work with. As far as all these flowers up here, though, I am not going to draw those. This this traceable is sketched all out just in case you want all that on there. I do not. I just want to know where my cup is, and everything else I'll freehand. Okay, so done with my small brush for now. Just gonna drop that in my water. And now I'm moving on to the big brush, and that's going to fill in my background. Background being here. Maybe this will work better if I can just stretch out this picture for you. All right, let's take a look at this big picture. Okay, so right now we've got, let's just look at the background only. Like, let's see, down here we've got some like kind of pinks in the background, kind of blacks, kind of browns, and then we have really dark color right in the center, and that's going to be probably blues, maybe some reds, maybe a little yellow. Up here we've got some green. It's a light faded green. Now don't look at the leaves, don't look at the flowers, look at what's behind them. Okay, so that's kind of a faded green. And up here it's even more faded, almost white. I mean, we have a really light color up here, light blues, light greens. So it's light, dark, medium. Okay, so those are the colors that we're going to fill in next. We're going to build this in layers. Get that out of the way here. Back to that big brush. Dunking it in the water. Now the right way to do this would be to start with your dark colors first, because once you lighten your colors, once you add white to them, they don't go dark again. So we want to start with the dark colors. So I'm starting with some blue and some red. And these are going to give me the darkest color possible. And then I'm just adding a tiny little touch of turquoise to it here, which will lighten it up and make it a little bit more on the green. So that's going around my cup. And if you're not entirely sure about the edges of your cup, if they might not be in the right spot, for example, paint over them slightly, because you can come back with the cup handle, for example, and paint over the background. But if you have a gap there, that's a little bit harder. You don't want to leave a gap. Big brush to fill in all these big details, the large areas of color. So just defining my shapes, defining the darkest shadows. Okay, so now I've got the darkest color in there. We'll want to go both ways with this, up and down, but I'll start up here first because I know those colors a little bit better. It's going to be green. It's going to be a nice dark green. So I'm taking that same puddle of paint, adding some yellow, adding some turquoise. So now I've got a nice dark green. And I'm just doing big blobs of paint like they're kind of pointing toward the cup. The bottom inside of the cup is going to be the darkest. Sorry if my hand's in the way here, I'm just filling it in. All right, so once we've got the darkest areas kind of covered, ooh, I see one more dark area that needs to be filled in. That's going to be right down here below the cup. The corners and the sides are going to get a little bit brighter, but this color right down here below the cup, below the shadow, is going to be pretty dark. Okay. All right, I'll leave it like that. Yes, you can fill in all the way to the corners if you want to. I know I'm going to put another color over it, so I'm not worried about it right now. Wiping the excess paint off that brush, pick up a little water and some white. So I have just a kind of a little bit of extra paint on my brush, and I'm just mixing it into the white, and this is going to give me my light color. Okay, so I think I'd like to see a little more green and blue distinction. This is kind of a gray, so I'm just going to add a few dashes and dots. Just some variety for the background. And I'll mix up some new colors. So rinsing the brush this time. Wiping the excess water in the paper towel, taking a tiny dot of blue, mixing it in with some white, This is going to be my blue sky. Way more white than blue, tiny dot of blue. This blue is powerful and it will take over quickly. All right, here we go. So now I've got my blue skies up in the corner. Get my clean brush out of the way. Or it won't stay clean for very long. Okay, both corners, we've got some blue coming in. Just keeping some nice choppy brush strokes. Now I want a brighter green up in here. That's going to be turquoise yellow and white. Mostly yellow. Or mostly white, actually, probably mostly white. A lot of white, little yellow, a little less turquoise. And just spread this color around a little bit. We'll have some nice bright greens here and there. You do want to cover up your canvas though, so make sure that all of your canvas areas are covered. Okay, that background is looking pretty fancy. Cleaning off that brush one more time. I have some dark, warmer colors to add down here. You can't tell quite yet, but there will be a lot of pink in this, so we want to bring in that pink to the background. Just a little. So by just a little, I mean, let's take some of this dirty color and mix it into that pink. So we have the same color, it's just more pink, right? We have the same as our background color, which is a bit of a mess, which is absolutely fantastic because that's the fun part. And I know some people have, you know, a lot of questions about color mixing, but the big thing is mix it until it looks okay. You just follow your basic formula colors, like red and white makes pink, teal and yellow makes a bright green, yellow and blue makes a dark green. You know, so then just adjust from there. Okay, so background's looking pretty fantastic now. Yeah. Looking pretty splashy. All right, so now I think I want to get into some of this cup detail and we'll move on from there. So I'm switching to my medium brush, which is the flat, and I just realized that I forgot to tell you what my brushes are. Okay, so I have my medium flat. You've already seen the large filbert, which is just a large background brush, and then the small round. So those are my 3 brushes today. All right, so with this, I'll just show you on my paper because it's easier than switching. All right, I'm going to start with the bottom of the teacup. So I have this darker gray color down in here, and then I'll fill in this, and I'll just work my way up, is the intention, okay? So starting with that gray, and gray is going to be whatever muddy color I have here. How does that look? And if you want to compare your colors to see if they're right, just hold them over the paper and compare. So I'm aiming for that right under the lip of that saucer. It's a little bit dark, so I'll add a little bit more white. Okay, now I'm just going to add in the shadow under the saucer. If you could do it in one brush stroke, great. If not, don't even worry. Okay, now I have a little bit of a darker shadow, just a little on the edge here, so I'll just darken up an edge. Okay, enough of that. A little more white. I'm going to do the same thing on the handle. Leading with the skinny edge. Just give that brush a little twist. Realize you probably can't see this at all. All right, it's hard to get all this on camera with my big fat hand in the way. All right, but now I have a handle. Okay, and this is why you want to paint over more of the area than you actually need, because, for example, now I've got a little bit of that green color showing under my cup handle. All right, a little bit more of that gray color, and we'll start on the top left and top right of this cup. Or I'll just do what I said I was going to do, which is at the bottom of the cup, working my way up. All right, so I have this little bottom of the teacup. Just a little kind of a shadowy area there. We'll add the detail. It'll make it look like it's supposed to. Okay, while I have that gray color, I'm going on the left of my cup. and just bringing that color in. So I want to make my cup look round, make it look 3D, which means it has to have shadows, so it has to have shading on the sides. So right there on my left side, I've got it a little bit darker. Taking that gray again, going over the right side, doing the same. Touch of water in my paint just to keep it flowing smoothly here. Okay. Now a little tiny bit more. Let's go with a slightly bluer shadow color. And now I'm going into the saucer, into the bottom of the saucer, right? So this is going to be right down in here. Do some little scribbles around it. Okay. All right, I know I have another color to add up here, but hold up. Let's just wait a moment. Let's just get that saucer done first. Okay, rinsing out the brush, and now I'm going into white, just white. Okay, just a little tiny white on the brush, and then taking it back to that saucer and blending it into my shadow. Just a little. Okay, if you pick up paint, because wet paint will pick up wet paint, so here you go. Wipe off the brush there on the paper towel, go back, pick up some more paint. Still filling in that saucer. And I'm still using the medium brush. The reason being is the medium brush will hold paint. If you switch to your small brush at this point, which I know some of you might be tempted to do, it's just going to take you a lot longer. And if you paint something with a lot of little brush strokes, it never looks as nice as if you paint it with a few big brush strokes. So that's the goal always, is to paint your painting in as few brush strokes as possible. Okay, I'll get that shadow in there. Okay, well that's looking like a saucer to me, so moving on. Now I have the top half and the bottom half of this cup, top half being more white, so I'll just go into the white again. Start in the center, working my way out. Okay, and if the paint underneath is still wet, you can get an okay blend. I'm gonna thicken that up a little more white paint. Very nice. Okay, moving on to the turquoise, rinsing the brush. So I've got a little bit of turquoise, a little bit of blue. Here's my dark teacup color. I don't want it that dark though, because it has to stand out from the background. Okay. I can mix colors a little better than that. I've got a lot of streaks showing, so I'll try to get rid of those. There, now we'll get that dark blue in there in the shadows. That looks much better. There we go. Kind of clean up some of these edges here. Okay, and then now we'll highlight that center, which is going to be just white. Okay, I don't want to fuss with that too much, so I'm going to leave that alone right now and move on. What else do we need to do? One thing that's bothering me is that background, so I want to darken that right around the teacup. Bring the background up to the teacup handle. Okay. So this is looking pretty okay right now. I'm just going to drop my brush in the water. We do have some more details on the cup that we'll be adding after this layer dries. So we'll move on to some flowers. This is why I did not want to do flowers. I didn't want to draw my flowers on because it's just going to be so much easier just to make it up. Okay, so I'm just cleaning off my big brush. The big brush being a filbert, it's the perfect shape for making organic figure or organic shapes like flower petals. Okay, so I have, going back to my cheat sheet here. Let's start with, we're just going to put dots down. So what if we want to start with pink flowers? Okay, so that's what we're going to do, is just pick a color and just use it. So here's my pink flowers, and just comparing to the cheat sheet here, I have a pink flower here, maybe a little more pink than that. One here, one here, one way up here. Now, when I'm adding the dot for the flower, what I'm intending to do is add the center dot. Well, the middle of the flower dot anyway. Another one up here. And keep an eye on your cheat sheet up in the corner, your reference photo. One there, one here, and one there. Okay, how's that? Yep, it looks like I've got my pink flowers covered. So, moving on, I'll just clean the brush a little and go into some purple flowers. So purple is going to be blue and red. A little bit of white. A little bit more white. A lot more white. I'm trying to match that color as closely as possible, so a little more blue, a little more white. Okay, purple is an insanely tough color to mix because you can have an infinite number of blues and reds and any other thing you can mix into them. So back to looking at my cheat sheet, looking for my purple flowers. I've got one here, got one there. Let's see, I've got one here, there, there, over here, and over there. See, it's looking like a vase, or looking like a teacup full of flowers already. Okay, so now I have some orange flowers, and I have one orange flower and a couple of white flowers. So, wiping the paint off again, rinsing the brush. And I'll go for some white flowers. Just taking a tiny little dot of white. I have the center of a white flower here and the center of one here. Okay, now I'll go for that orange flower, which is going to be mostly yellow. Mix a little bit of red into your yellow until you get a nice bright orange. To tone it down, you can add a little bit of white to it, which will calm it down pretty nicely. And right about here's that big orange flower. Okay, lovely. Now let's start adding our flowers. Or should we add our leaves? Let me think about that. Yeah, we do have to brighten this sucker up a whole lot, don't we? All right, let's go in order, just like we started, and let's go with the pink flowers again. Giving that brush a good rinse. See if I can find a clean spot on my paper towel here. There we are. Okay, so I'm starting with the pink flowers. So if you take a close look at these flowers, and I'll zoom in on this again, we've got some nice little variation in these flowers. So this isn't pure pink. It's got a little bit of purple in it, maybe a little bit of grayish, maybe, it's got some more whites, might be some blue mixed in there. Same with the purple. It's dark purple, light purple. There's some varieties. Orange, yeah. See, each of these flowers, it's kind of the same story. This little pink guy down here has like some orange, purple, pink, everything. And our little tiny leaves in the back, some of those are really bright, some of them not quite as bright. So let's see, I'm gonna put this back up in the corner. Just want to give us an idea of what to look for. One way to get your paint really streaky is to not mix it on your plate. Instead, what you do is add both colors to your brush and let it mix on the canvas. So in this case, I'm going to pick up a little white, a little red, probably not that extreme. There, blend them a little. Okay. And then these flower petals I'm just going to pull down. Excuse me, guess I'm allergic to flowers. Okay, same thing with the next. We're going to go way up here. I'm going to add a few petals. And because those petals look so bland, let's try that again. I want white on one side of the brush, red on the other side of the brush. There, that's more interesting, isn't it? Oop, okay, don't overdo it, just only a little. Okay, and I'm just going to go down to my next pink flower. I know where they are because I've marked them all out. This one on the right has kind of a lot of petals that are all pulling toward the center. Again, you may want to switch to a smaller brush. If you do, though, you're going to get it, well, it's up to you. It's your painting. Just be aware that a smaller brush holds less paint. Okay, so there's another pink one, and then down here a pink one. Right there. Oh, a little more white. Don't want to leave big globs of paint on the canvas, but I want to make sure I'm using enough paint that it covers what it's supposed to. Okay, a little more. All right, so if this is something that you want to obsess over, if that's not exactly a flower shape, you can obsess over that if you choose to. I'm going to let it go because in the grand scheme of things, it's still going to appear to read as a flower. So I'm okay with that. In the painting, this is more about enjoying the process of painting than it is about coming up with something exactly what you intended to be, which, you know, that's nice too. But painting is just such a stress reliever. It's just a way to kind of get away from the world and, you know, live in your own imagination for a bit. It's good to really get focused. Whatever is going on in the rest of the world has nothing to do with your painting. So you can just get focused on your painting, let everything else move aside. Okay, that was my last pink flower. So one thing I probably want to do while I have this pink on my brush, though, is add the flowers down here in the cup. So cup detail, cup flowers. All right, so I'm just gonna make a blob, 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 blob. These are very undefined because they're part of the cup. It's just the cup design. Keeping some more water in my paint here so that it continues to flow smoothly. All right, that is enough of that. Okay, so now I'm going to rinse my brush again. And let's move on to those purple flowers. I'm going to start out with a little more white. It's hard to tell where my white is at this point. It's kind of buried. That's okay. So I'm starting here with a light purple, mixing it well. Okay, light purpley blue. And now I'm going to do this on the ends of my flower petals, because the ends of the flower petals are lighter. So we can paint the whole flower kind of in 2 brush strokes. 1, 2. Some little purple specks down here on the cup itself, not too many. All right, and wipe off that brush. Not rinsing it this time, just going into the darker purple, the darker bluey purple. Maybe maybe a small touch of white, but not too much. We do want these brighter than the background, but okay, here's my dark color purple. Aha. So if you start at the base of the flower and swipe up toward the end of the petals, then you can get that two-tone shade. Make sure you lift off, press down, lift off, press down, lift off. There you go. Now we get that nice shading on those flowers. Gorgeous. Okay. Wiping that paint off as well. And now we can move on to, let's do the white flowers. And the white flowers, if you notice, are actually pretty darn colorful. That's the freedom of painting things that are white. You can make them any color you want, which is good right now because if you have a look at my white, it's got every color in it. There's a little white left, sure, but gotta dig for it. All right. So this way I'm just getting a little bit of extra color on my brush. And I'll just do the big pull-in flower petals. I know where the center of my flower is, so press down and pull into the center of the flower. Press down, pull in. Press down, pull in. Okay, so now we're getting those big petals with slight variations of color. Okay, a little bit more, and we'll go on to that second white flower, which is also a big attention getter here. So press down, pull in, press down, pull in. And this is one big reason to use a filbert brush, because it makes the edges of those flower petals just like they should be. Okay, and those are the only white flowers. Let's see. I'm just looking at my reference to see if I should have any white down here in the cup. I don't believe I should. Ooh, you know what? I just realized I missed the big pink flower. Well. So I'm taking a medium dark pink, this one right here. That's that big flower. Okay, and I'm starting at the bottom. All right, now here's going to be my center, and I can pull all those edges toward the center. So I'm picking up a little white, a little pink, toward the center, toward the center. Okay. Those two side petals are going to come in. Okay, I'm going to leave it like this. Let's see, what else do we need? Well, as long as I have this, I can add another big flower right down here. And this big brush is going in the water cup. It's going to stay there for a little while. We're going to move on to our medium-sized brush, which is the 1/2 inch flat, and add some leaves. So the leaves that we're adding now are going to be these really nice and bright ones. So that's going to be teal, yellow, and white. To keep them bright, I'm just going to keep a lot of yellow, a lot of white. White's dirty, that's okay. It's just going to add a little color variation, no big deal. Comparing the colors to make sure they're right. And that is indeed much brighter than what's on there. So I want to take a touch of regular blue and mix in, because that'll dull it down pretty quickly. And we're getting a little closer, need some more yellow. Actually, maybe need a little of that orange. Okay, so when you come up with that color that you are happy with, because this is your painting. You're the one that needs to be happy here. A color that you're happy with, and that's not too far off. If you want to get into advanced color mixing, you can add a little bit of red to your green, and that'll dull it down, tone it down. Okay, and now here's the trick with my leaf painting. I'm starting with my flat brush, okay, square brush, putting down one corner, press down, lift up, press down, lift up. Okay, I'm making it look easy, but it could take some practice. So practice on your table cover, your paper plate, whatever you want to. So I'm just doing a press down, lift off, and I'm just adding little leaves. If they get too long and fat, add another swipe right beside it. Okay, coming up over here, press down, lift off, press down, lift off. Oh, that one got a little big. Okay, and we do have a few more of these really bright green ones. Press down, lift off. What color would you call that? Is it a spring green or is it more of a chartreuse? Anyway, it's a lovely color. Couple little dots out here. It's starting to look a little too similar, so let's give it a mix up. How about let's add some white and blue. So I'll take this over to my white and blue mess, mix it in. A little more white probably. Keep it a little lighter on the lighter side. Still has to look a little green, but bluer than the other green. So a few more. And we'll do some, maybe these can be little flowers kind of sticking out. A few more leaves. Well, I think that's looking fantastic. So with this light bluey green on here, what can we do with our cup? Add maybe a few little details. That looks like enough, huh? Okay. Now let's move on to that orange. That is our last color. Oh, I think I made my orange color. I think this was supposed to be my orange flower, but I made it white. So my orange flower is going to go up here. And let's see, we'll get into that orange, or we'll make a new orange, whatever we need to do, which is going to be white. Gonna be a little bit of white. Gotta have white in it. Where'd my white go? Yellow, a little bit of red. Mostly yellow, a little bit of red, a little bit of white. Gotta get some new white here. Mine is all gone. That's not white. Get back to drinking my coffee here pretty soon. That's white. All right. There we are. A little bit of white in my orange. Okay, so now this is my new orange flower. It's right there, center. And then we'll just... This time, nope, I didn't switch back to my big fat filbert brush, which would have been a great idea, and if you did that, good for you. I'm just using the corner of my flat brush and pressing more firmly. The harder you press on the brush, the wider your line is going to be. If you want a thin line, use thin paint and light pressure. How is that? Okay, let's add some centers of flowers. As long as I've got my orange, which I'll make it a little slightly bit more orangey with some red and some more white. Okay, got my brush loaded up with paint. And the white flowers, the centers of the white flowers are going to be that orange. So I'm just tap, 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 tap. Just tapping with the center of the brush, or I'm sorry, a corner of the brush. Orange flower, definitely going to be orange. And orange flowers down here a little bit. We aren't going to worry about being exact on the designs on this cup. We're just going to put some color in there. Okay, as long as I've got some orange, touch more white. Brighten up that happy orange a little. I've got some little flower buds growing out here and there. Lovely. Okay, I've even got some orange in some of my leaves. Just want to make sure we're adding enough color variety here that it keeps looking interesting. Don't want to get bored looking at it, right? So we'll just add some color variety. This orange and green look great together, so don't be afraid to use it. Okay. I'm just going to set that whole brush in the water for now. Switch back to my little brush. We're doing pretty well getting this mostly done. We just have a few details that we'll want to add. Let's see. I'll start with a dark color, kind of pinky orangey something. And then I'm going down here into the cup and adding some ledges. Some details, okay? Now to get a really, really, really thin line, you do need to water down your paint. Okay, so I'm adding water to it, adding water to the mix here, stirring it in, because to do thin lines, you need thin paint, light touch with the brush. And you can get a pretty darn skinny line. Okay, and I have this bottom of the saucer here, this little, what would you call that? Would that be a foot of the cup? I know some ceramic artists are gonna know the answer to that. Okay, maybe I'll make that a little darker, maybe a little more on the purple side, and do the rim of the cup, the line just below the rim. It's going behind some of those leaves, not over them. And I think I can add a few of those, a little bit, to the cup handle. Thin out the paint, add some water, mix some water into the paint that's on your plate, then go to the canvas. Okay, here's where we get a little, the last step in your paintings is always the details, which is kind of the highlights in the calligraphy, the little swishy swoops. So if you want to add some like stems, you can just come in and just add some little whoop, doop de doop. If you want to add some little flower buds, you can do that too. Make sure your paint is watery and thin. And in this case, I'm going to make it a little more green. So rinsing the brush again, coming back into my blue-green areas. As you can tell, I'm not being too uptight about which color I'm using. I'm knowing if I want to have a lighter color, a darker color. Not quite thin enough. There we are. All right. And some little swishes. Let's see at the bottom of those purple flowers. There should be a stem. That should be darker. So I'm mixing that green color, adding a touch of blue. I'm also going to add the same color to the centers of some flowers. Only because it's a dark color, like I was saying. If you want to add a lighter color or some other color, go for it. See, these pink flowers are going to have orange centers down here, but up here I can add a little. Okay, I added some cute little flower buds in there. So now I'll attach some stems to some of them. We don't need to be too literal with stems. This is kind of a fun, splashy painting, so everything doesn't have to be connected to something. It just has to be there. That's all. If you have a stem and a flower on the same page, it's going to look like it's a flower with a stem, even if they're not connected. Okay, now back to that orange. Let's go with a lighter orange. I'm going to take some white. Still using the small brush, just dab, 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 dotting in the center of the flowers. Okay, any other flowers that need centers? Any other flowers that need to be orange? I'll have the color out. I can add this color a little bit, I guess, to my cup, just for some decoration. Kind of ties it all together. But I think that is enough. Now, let's see. gonna have to go back to, let's see, I'll switch to my medium brush. So we're getting on to the last details now. Oh, goodness. All right, keep some extra paper towels if you can. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to some purple, some dark background color here, which here's a little bit purple. Okay, and I'm coming in around that cup, bringing it down to the feet. Just right around the edge of the cup. There. That's a little better. Now I'll take that some dark blue. I don't want to forget that I have a dark color down there. It's my shadow. There. Oh boy, I think I don't want to touch it too much more. There, a little shadow. What do you think? The calligraphy and highlights being the last step. We can add a little bit more calligraphy. Let's go with like a nice bright pinky orange. What the heck? And we can just brighten up a few spots in here. Just kind of give it some pop. Now this is an optional step. You do not need to do this step if you're worried about messing it up. But in my opinion, this is the fun step. This is when you get to add all the fun little details. So we're adding the highlights and just some little fun little specks of color. Like on those white flower petals that we don't have to make white, because you can make any color you want on the white petals. Keep it mostly white, just kind of add some color variation. But yeah, they've got really pretty looking. Okay, let's try some nice purple. Mostly white, keeping it bright. These are highlights. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I don't know if I want to go too much further with any of it. Rinse that brush again, pick up some more white. Yeah, I just want to pop in a little bit of color there toward the center. Something like that. All right, at this point, make any last touches that you want to make. Add your signature. And we're gonna call this one done. There, just adjusting that edge a little bit. Can do some dark shadows right down in here. This is a nice part about having the painterly brush strokes. When you go to adjust them later, they blend in. There, just keeping my shadows. All right, what do you think? Can we call it? Or should we paint all day? I don't know. I'm okay with painting all day. But I got to end the video sometime, so calling it. Brush in the water. This one's done. This is our Spring Tea by Creatively Uncorked. If you are not yet a member, check out members.creativelyuncorked.com. And you can join a membership and you can have all these tutorials anytime you want. You get the tracing templates with them. And I will see you next week. We do a new painting every week with Creatively Uncorked for the members, and you can get signed up and have access to yours weekly.